News at 11.
At breaking news, an unbelievable sight on a flight out of PDX.
It was just like a part of the wall that flew off.
After a chunk of the side of a passenger plane disappears, leaving a gaping hole. And despite the close call on board Alaska 1282,
And I heard that the mom had to drag her son back inside.
it ended with wheels down and everyone safe.
And thank goodness for that. Good evening, everyone. I'm David Molko. This emergency happened shortly after takeoff on a flight headed from Portland to Ontario, California this evening. That plane now grounded indefinitely with a hole in its side. Let's get right to Alma McCarty, who heard from passengers on board that flight and is live at PDX with much more on how this all unfolded. Alma?
Yeah, David, like you said, I am live at PDX here tonight, where passengers who were on that Alaska Airlines flight that took off from here in Portland ended up back in Portland not long after. Everything on their flight seemed normal at first, but that was until about 5 minutes after takeoff.
We just heard like a loud bang or like a boom, and I look up and the air masks are like out, popped down. And I look to my left, and there's just this huge, like, gaping hole.
A mid-flight scare for passengers on Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 from Portland, Oregon to Ontario, California Friday. Elizabeth sharing her video from a couple rows back on the 737.
First I thought it was the emergency door, but there was no door there. It was just like a part of the wall that flew off.
You know, the breathing masks dropped. They work.
Evan Smith, who was sitting in row 20, says the loud bang came just moments after the pilot announced they'd reached 10,000 feet.
It shows you how structurally strong those planes are. You could blow a hole like that because the hole was about as wide as a refrigerator and about 2/3 as high when I finally got to see it later.
Passengers report a teen had his shirt ripped off after the paneling blew out.
And the mother was holding on to him, and she said her son's cell phone and some stuff blew out of the plane, and there was stuff blowing around back where they were because they were back where the wind was.
This was the call to air traffic control as the plane gets closer to PDX.
Yes, we are emergency. We are depressurized. We do need to return back to. We have 177 passengers.
Flight trackers show the plane was back on the ground just before 5:30.
They got us down safe.
Those on board applauding the poise and professionalism of the flight crew and fellow passengers.
We could feel the air, and it was very loud. But I'm glad everyone stayed calm and everyone had their seatbelts on.
Everything went swell. Like I said, the cabin crew did an excellent job. Pilot did a great job. Can't say anything bad about them at all.
Now, the NTSB and FAA will be investigating this case. And as for those passengers that we spoke to this evening, they are understandably a little bit shaken up, but even given this situation, seemed pretty calm and collected. Now, as for Elizabeth, she ended up getting on a flight that flew out this evening, whereas Evan, he rebooked a flight for Sunday. David?
Absolutely incredible, with everyone in the cockpit and the cabin doing their part to get everyone on the ground safe. Just so glad everyone's okay. Unbelievable. Thank you, Alma. Here's some of what we know about the specific aircraft involved. It is a Boeing 737 MAX 9. It is less than a year old. Alaska's version can seat about 178 passengers along with 6 crew, meaning it was nearly full on this flight. The aircraft has 2 doors on each side, front and back, along with 2 overwing exits on each side. And then this, the curious feature we have been talking about, an extra door of sorts, 3/4 of the way back, 1 on each side, and that in this case appears to have been blocked off or plugged. A lot of questions swirling tonight about what caused that particular component to suddenly fail in midair. So stay with KGW for continuing coverage of the aftermath of the Alaska Airlines flight emergency. Updates as we get them at kgw.com and on the KGW app. Developing tonight, police are trying to find the driver who hit a motorcyclist and then fled the scene. Angel Blackburn's wife tells us he just started riding last summer, and she and their 2 kids often ride in a car behind him. That's what they were doing New Year's Eve in Gresham at the time of this crash. Angel was stopped at a red light on Division Street when the suspect hit his motorcycle and then ran him over.
It was as if as soon as I got that window rolled down for my son to wave, the car just came out of nowhere, hit him from behind, and then next thing you know, he's in the street in front of me and the car's running him over. And all I saw was a flash of red because I was more focused on if my husband was alive or not.
Blackburn survived, but with serious injuries. His wife Audrey there tells us he's been in the ICU for 5 days and has had surgeries on his spine and his legs. Police have this video to go on. They say shows the suspect vehicle stop nearby with 2 people get out and then they walk away. Police are still trying to find them. The car there appears to be a red Chevy Aveo. If you can help, you're asked to call Gresham Police. New at 11, an arrest in a major car theft case after investigators uncovered an illegal towing operation where the suspect allegedly trafficked in stolen cars and then sold them to a Portland scrap metal business. Catherine Cook is here with more on what led to this morning's arrest. Catherine?
David, they got a big break last month. That's when investigators say a 79-year-old woman caught the suspect trying to steal her Cadillac with his tow truck. She was in another car with her great-grandchildren at the time. She boxed the suspect in and demanded he return her car, which he did before taking off. She gave investigators valuable information, which in part led to today.
Pictures from Portland police show officers arresting a person they believe was involved in an illegal towing operation. The suspect, 53-year-old Joseph Allen Beard, allegedly sold stolen cars for scrap metal. Police arrested him Friday morning near Northeast 162nd and Halsey. It's part of a months-long investigation by the Multnomah County DA's office's Auto Theft Task Force, dubbed Operation Mistletoe. Deputy DA Cody Linderholm.
The whole purpose of this task force and my focus has been going after the bigger offenders, and we have gotten them. We've gotten prison time.
In this case, investigators believe Beard trafficked stolen vehicles through an illegal towing company called Mader's Auto Recycling. They say the tow truck he was driving wasn't licensed. Between August and November of last year, investigators say a representative of Mader's Auto Recycling sold 80 cars to Rivergate Scrap Metal on North Columbia Boulevard. Investigators found at least 5 of the 80 cars were stolen, and about 17 of them appear to have false vehicle ID numbers. In all, investigators say Rivergate paid $29,000 for the cars.
Looking at the laws on the books and looking at our investigations, I think it is a much bigger issue than we think. I think the laws surrounding scrapyards are outdated.
Investigators say Beard also used fraudulent DMV possessory lien foreclosure forms when dealing with the stolen cars. The forms are meant for cars that are impounded by government request, then auctioned off. But investigators say that none of the cars sold were actually towed by government request. Linderholm says it's just one more big-picture problem this case brings to light.
It is possible that people don't know a vehicle is stolen, but I think we need to have a more robust due diligence process when you are intaking a vehicle when it could be somebody's livelihood or a community member's lifeline out there.
Beard is facing 22 charges, including trafficking in stolen vehicles, first-degree forgery, and first-degree theft. This case is still under investigation. David.
What a fascinating story. Catherine Cook in the newsroom. Thanks, Catherine. The homeless crisis is not just a Portland issue, and tonight we are looking at one way it is playing out in the Dalles. A day center there that serves homeless people is now closed after neighbor complaints, and the city accused the nonprofit St. Vincent de Paul's of creating a public nuisance. Officials say they were in violation of an ordinance that requires businesses to be responsible for much of what happens within 300 feet of their building. Now, according to city records, someone has been arrested or cited within 300 feet of that day center 34 times in just a month for these types of nuisance crimes.
There's feces everywhere. I try to walk my dogs every day and I have to pull them away from it. We've had people in our house. I've been attacked.
We're just looking for structure and a way to be able to move above society's judgment.
There are other resources in town for people to get food and clothes, but not another option for a shelter like this. The day center hopes the closure will only be temporary as it works with the city on how to resolve the issues. Well, let us talk weekend weather now, with the Cascades finally set to see some significant snow. So how's it looking, Matt?
Yeah, it's really going to set in overnight tonight and tomorrow. Right now at Timberline, nothing happening there, but 22 degrees, a couple inches of new snow today. But we've got winter weather advisories up and down the Cascades, and it's going to snow for most of next week. Ski report's going to be looking a lot better by then, but here's tonight's.